Hudson,
What's up, Tursky?
this is Two Guys Talking Golf.
That's right, baby. The Open Week.
Are you sure it's not British Open week?
I actually caught myself. I actually said the British Open today when I was sitting at a table with some people. I actually said the British Open. I don't know why. It doesn't bug me either way. I don't care.
People get mad.
I know, but like if you're sitting at a table with people who aren't like hardcore golfers, if you just say the Open Championship, like a lot of people are like, "What are you talking about?" So I'm all right. I'm all right. Well, you can call it either one with me. It doesn't bother me.
But you call it the Open Championship.
Yeah, I do. I try. Yeah, I try
Okay.
to.
I think when I was growing up, I called it the British Open.
Oh, so did I.
And for some reason, I got peer pressured out of it. And now I call it the Open Championship. I don't even think about calling it the British anymore.
Yeah, I mean, again, I still do if it's people who aren't like. If I'm in a group of people who I know just aren't big into golf, I'll say the British Open because then they kind of know what it is. But I was the same as you. Like I always called it the British Open forever, up
Mm-hmm.
until I probably started working in the golf business. So yeah, I mean, up until I was probably like 20, I don't know, 22 or something like that. I probably called it the British Open.
So where do you put the Open Championship in terms of rankings among majors? Like, how fired up do you get for the Open compared to, say, the Masters?
Masters number one, Open Championships two, U.S. Open, PGA.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's tough between Open Championship and U.S. Open because I kind of do love the carnage of the U.S. Open, and it's
Hmm.
almost
Hmm.
guaranteed every year you're going to see some carnage. Where the Open Championship, you're kind of it depends on the weather. If you get some big nasty weather, then you see some brutal stuff go on. But then all of a sudden, every once in a while, and it seems like more recently, you've got some pretty mild weather, and guys just torch the courses. So
Well,
I don't
don't
know.
tell that to Justin Thomas.
No, no. Nope, no, not telling him or
he's he's had a rough
Morikawa.
go, man. He's had a
Yeah,
rough go, like just in general playing professional golf. I feel like this entire year, he's just cold.
yeah,
His last three major rounds, I think, are 81, 82, 77, or something.
that's
Yikes,
tough.
man.
That's tough.
He'll get it back though. He's been working hard. I know that he's been working hard on his swing. I see it week in, week out. So hopefully he can get it together a little bit. We won't pile on, that's for sure. But
No,
we do have Open Championship week. Royal Liverpool.
yeah.
Liverpool. What do you think about Royal Liverpool? Obviously, Tiger Woods kind of put this course on the map by only hitting driver one time in
Yeah,
2006 en route to winning. Hit 85% of fairways that week, only one driver.
yeah,
And that theory or that tactic um, has kind of held water. We see guys every time you go over to the Open Championship, they're taking a fairway wood out, putting a long iron in.
yep.
Take fairway out, put a long iron in, driving iron, two iron, long. And that was Tiger's strategy for years over at the Open Championship. A lot of the young guys now are doing the same. We saw Rory McIlroy, obviously. He did it this week. He did it last week at the Genesis. And even if you look back at 2014 when he won at Hoyle Lake, that's what he did as well. He put a two iron in the bag that week. So every time they go over the Open Championship, we talk about guys putting driving irons in. Is that something that Tiger started? Low key?
Probably not. I mean, I would think that guys have been doing it for a while. I mean, it is interesting, and it's a totally different way to play the course too. I mean, keeping yourself in those fairways gives you such a big advantage to coming into some of those greens because the way you have to play stuff where you have to land it so short and basically predict how far that ball is going to roll out, whether it's a fairway, whether it's a green, whatever. There's just so much more of that you don't worry about for most courses in the United States. Like you just rip driver and hopefully it goes as long as it possibly can, and then you hit an iron or wedge or whatever onto the green. And here it's like there's so many bunkers and the undulation's so massive that you just have to really try to predict where that ball is going to end up, and sometimes it's really difficult. But yeah, the iron thing is always cool, and I think a lot of people too. You think about like, oh, it's going to be crazy windy, wind coming off the ocean, da da da. That hasn't really been the case yet, but a lot of that is hitting those low stingers and keeping the ball low and all that. So it's probably been done long before Tiger, but it's definitely something we still see today, where guys are adding utility and driving irons to the bag.
So this just hit me. The last two winners of the Open Championship at Royal Liverpool have been Rory in 2014, Tiger 2006. So that means it's been decades, at least, since someone has won the Open Championship at Royal Liverpool without a Nike club in the bag.
Oh wow,
Are
yeah,
are
you're
we
right.
gonna look at a winner this week that has Nike in the bag? I feel like you
Oh,
got to put some money on someone with a Nike club to win this week.
how awesome would that be if you're like at Nike and you can kind of claim that? So like, we don't even make clubs anymore, and we're still winning major championships.
Seriously. I
Um,
wonder how the Nike guys feel. Like, how does Mike Taylor feel about that?
Mike Taylor, I don't think cares. Like he's doing his own thing,
Yeah,
whatever.
probably
I don't
not.
think he cares. But there's somebody who worked in those divisions, whether they're an engineer, marketing, whatever, that I think cares, and I think still finds it kind of cool, and kind of probably wishes they could promote it in some way. But
Right.
no point of Nike promoting like, hey, we won with a Vaporfly Pro 2 iron in the bag. Like, who cares? Like,
Actually, that would be a great. You know how they have all those like spoof Twitter accounts?
oh yeah, just make
Someone should do like fake Nike rep,
yeah,
and all they
that'd be
do is
awesome.
pump Nike clubs. Like, what Nike clubs are in play this week? What were the wins that Nike clubs had?
That'd be pretty
Probably
awesome,
already
actually.
exists, but pretty good idea. Someone out there can steal it if you
That's
want.
a
I
pretty
have
good
no
idea.
intention of doing it myself.
Maybe
Um,
Club Pro guy will do it. Thursday night men's league. He's is done. So I guess he has time.
yeah, right. He retired, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, he's retiring from her. He's not playing this year, so yeah, he's got time to do it. Hopefully, he can, make a few extra bucks.
Yeah, that's funny. Obviously, not an ad, but we are big Club Pro guy fans on the
Yes,
show, I suppose. So check him out if you've never heard of him. So we live in a simulation, right? I think that's
V-
been
this is
essentially proven.
very very possible.
Okay, so I'd like to add some more proof onto that.
Okay.
So, so the biggest equipment story essentially last week at the Genesis Scottish Open um, was Rory McIlroy switching into a P760 iron.
Yep.
We wrote articles on golfwrx.com, pjtour.com, Instagram posts, probably Facebook posts, tweets, all that. That was before the event started. When the event was over, all anyone talked about was Rory's 2 iron shot into the
Yep.
72nd hole that he hit it to 8 feet. So the club that he throws in before the event ultimately becomes the most famous club of the event after it.
Yeah.
Just more proof we live in the simulation, but I thought it was pretty cool. Throwing that in and then hitting that incredible stinger to prove why it was in the bag in the first place. Um, what were just some of your kind of takeaways before we get into the Open Championship from the Genesis and Rory making that change or him hitting the Persimmon driver? Wherever you want to take it with the Genesis, what were some of your thoughts coming away from there?
The Rory thing's interesting. I mean, the P760s. I remember when those came out, they got dogged. Everybody in like the golf like equipment world kind of dogged them. They didn't like the look. They thought the aesthetics were garbage and da 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 da. And they didn't seem like they sold very well. You never saw them in bags. I don't think I've ever seen just out in the wild a set of 760s in a bag. I just don't think I ever have.
Is that
Uh,
because people don't know where it fits in the bag? Like better players are going
but
with blades, and then the amateur players, they're looking at 770s or 790s. Is
yeah,
it because of like consumer confusion?
no, I think the better player looked at it and said, "I'm going to move on to something else." Like this is a to that at the time it was weird to have like foam filled hollow body long irons. And then you get into forged kind of one piece short irons, all that kind of progressive set back
Mm-hmm.
then just really didn't exist. And I think a lot of the better players said, well, instead of kind of like going to this and relying on it, and I don't like the look, I'm just going to move over to something else, and I'll grab, a cavity black back player's blade from. some other company.
Mhm.
And even on tour, there wasn't I mean, they were in play, but not wildly. So it was just an iron that I think was maybe just ahead of its time. But it's interesting now because he's put him in the bag. We've seen a couple 760s go in the bag, and they're legit older. Like there is newer stuff that TaylorMade's come out with that, like you think like, they could have put two generations of 770s, but they went all the way
Mhm.
back to 760s. They could have done a couple generations of UDIs, and they didn't. They moved into these. So it's pretty interesting that they're going back to 760s, and it's probably, like we always say, it's probably some type of launch condition that's bringing that into play. Whether maybe it spins a little bit more than the other two, but they still get that little extra distance out of it. Maybe it's something where, the miss hit on the heel is super hot and the ball still goes, and if they miss it just slightly, they know it's going to carry and da 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 da. I don't know exactly what that reason is that they're putting these in the bag, but they've shown up a handful of times, and it's very interesting because there were a lot of clubs in between those and now that you could put in those long iron slots.
Speaking of a lot of clubs between then and now, the transition right there.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it briefly. Rory tried out a Persimmon driver. Got to bring up the topic. No podcast last week. It was a pretty big story. I think it's cool. Um, Older people obviously love seeing what the younger kids can do with Persimmon and with rolling back equipment being so high. I think that's why this video went so viral.
Yeah.
But he was out at the Genesis Scottish Open. I think it was a Wednesday. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday, but someone brought him out a Persimmon driver to try, and he did. And lucky for everyone, there was a launch monitor going. So
Oh yeah, of course.
Rory McIlroy in 2023 averages. This is his average: 326, no, 327.6 yards per drive and 184.6 miles per hour ball speed.
Crazy.
That's with he plays a Stealth 2 Plus, right?
Excuse me. Yeah.
All right. So with the Persimmon driver and a new age golf ball, TaylorMade TG5X. It was not a Balata or anything like that. Wound, nothing. Just normal. So he switches to Persimmon and he dropped down to 168.6 miles per hour ball speed and 255.7 yards of carry.
Jeez.
I'm not a
That's
math guy, but that's a big, big difference.
huge. Absolutely
Is
huge.
this a feather in the cap of the people who want to see equipment rolled back?
I don't know. I mean, I guess, but here's the problem. Here's the absolute problem is that this is one of the best players in the world. There are arguably very few guys who are better than him, arguably only a handful of guys who are faster than him in terms of swinging the club, and he
Mm-hmm.
lost 70 yards of carry.
Mm-hmm.
About. So what does that happen to you and me? Like he dropped to 168 miles an hour ball speed and 256 carry. That means you or I are going to see even a greater drop because one, he's going to hit it on the screws way more than we are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you took an average of 100 shots from me, you, and him, I'm gonna be penalized the most because you're gonna hit it in the center more than I am. He's gonna hit it in the center even more than you are. So he's gonna get away. Like I get it, like roll it back, whatever, but it's gonna affect a guy like me or people who are higher handicaps than me way more than it's gonna affect the guys on the tour. And I know everybody says, "Oh, it's only for tour anyway." It's gonna trickle down because
That's
no,
been our argument the whole time. It's
because
gonna trickle down to amateurs.
because nobody wants to play in a legal club. I'm
Yep.
sorry, nobody does. But
There's too
so,
much peer pressure there. There's
yeah,
too much.
and then also, okay, so say you do something where these are the numbers that they get. How many viewers are going to get lost? It's like, okay, well, let's make the NBA play way more defense and the games are going to end 75-65. How many people are going to stop watching those games? How many people are going to stop watching here when guys, and I know it's stupid and it's done, but people watch baseball for home runs. People watch basketball for scoring. People watch football for exciting play. If guys aren't hitting at 300, they're hitting at 255. That sounds very pedestrian. And will people be chiming in to watch,
Yeah.
you know?
I think people like watching professional athletes be challenged, though. Like,
True.
I definitely watched way more NBA basketball 20 years ago compared to now. And
Yeah,
that's not
me too.
necessarily even because, like, oh, you've fallen off as a sports fan. It's not even because of that. The NBA games are just way more difficult to watch. It's like 139 to
Yeah.
126. It's like, yeah, it's fun if you're betting the over. You know, not if you're just like a fan who's not betting and you're watching because you love basketball, you
Yeah.
know? And I guess I'm not even making a point about golf there, but it is true about the NBA.
Yeah. But
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 I
how does
will
that
say it was awesome to see, just to get my point off real quick, I suppose. It was awesome to see Rory do this.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that he was willing to do that in public with Persimmon driver, with all controversy surrounding equipment. He's talked on about it. He's talked about it. And I think it's awesome that pros kind of get enjoyment out of the challenge as well. And I think if you had like 4 events a year that were persimmon or hickory events, you go to an old style track that's like 6,600 yards that got super passed up, and you
Yeah.
put, you know, the best players in the world out there. It doesn't even have to be a full field, doesn't have to be a real event, just like an exhibition. I mean, these guys go out, they do the match, they
Yeah.
go to different tours that are live golf, and there's all sorts of stuff going on in the golf world right now. um, I think guys are more willing to do exhibitions and YouTube videos and stuff like that. I mean, Bryson has his own entire channel. I
Yep.
would love to see the persimmon and hickory catch on a little bit and kind of have that be a side cool thing for like us diehard golfers who do geek out over equipment. I think that would be sick, and I think people will watch that.
I think people would too. I think it'd be really cool. The tough. I mean, I wouldn't say even tough. Like if you're a TaylorMade or a Callaway or Titleist or whoever, you're gonna go to one of these small little guys who make persimmon woods, and you're gonna have them make you some branded stuff. Or who knows, if you have the machining and possibility, you'll make your own. And then also you could sell like a little like half set of persimmon and blades and whatever super weak lofts, all that stuff. And then make a ball that spins like an absolute top. I mean, you could find a way to like turn it into a way to sell equipment as well, just different stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, I think it would be cool to do something like that. It would be definitely way better than watching the match without any pros in it.
Preach. That's all we have to say about that.
Yeah,
I agree. All
I
right.
didn't even watch it.
So Rory switched into a P762 iron. Then Collin Morikawa threw
Yeah,
an old driving iron. He's not usually a driving iron guy, but he didn't go with the P760. He went with a P790 3 iron
yeah,
driving iron. Now, it wasn't like the most shocking thing I had ever heard when I found out he switched from TaylorMade. It was a little more shocking when I saw the photo of it, though.
yep,
So it's
yep.
the unreleased P790 that Collin Morikawa switched to at the Open Championship. Knudsen, take us away on your thoughts about the P790 upcoming. Apparently, it's supposed to drop and be released end of summer. We'll see.
Yeah.
But what do you think about it so far?
It looks good. The 790 is kind of TaylorMade's bread and butter iron. It's
Yep.
meant for it covers a wide range of golfers. It's built with a ton of tech. It's multi-pieced. Usually it's got like a thin, fast steel face. It's got a body that sometimes I think they forge the body. Face is not. Maybe the other way around.
I think the
Foam,
face is forged
yeah, and the
and
body's
the
cast.
body's. Yep.
There's two ways to do it. Either way, they're going to mark forge on the club.
Right,
But
right,
yeah,
right.
thin face, going to have foam filled, going to have that speed slot in the sole. So overall, just the 790 is a great iron. It's a little bit bigger, so it's very forgiving. I love the clean look of this new one. It's pretty much that kind of dark, kind of I wouldn't call it satin finish, but almost like a bead blasted finish, real dull. It's got just a
Mhm.
little line of like slightly shinier metal to it right through the middle of the back. But I mean, kind of looks like a blade from a distance. So really good looking. I really like it. I think it's one of those looking at visually. it's probably going to perform great, but visually, I think people are going to really like this iron, and you're going to see these in a ton of bags next year. You know, when these come out and finally are released, these things are going to sell like crazy, just like the previous gens of 790s have. So interesting. The one thing that's interesting about it is that the P790, a 3 iron, that set, it's typically not geared towards the player who plays a 3 iron. You know, like the
Hmm.
790s aren't necessarily built for the scratch or better than scratch type players. It's not really who they're marketed to. They could play them. So it's kind of interesting that Morikawa is playing the 790 instead of like again a UDI or something like that already
Right.
exists in the lineup. So again, it would be interesting to see. You know, he kind of liked the way the 3 iron sat at address, and he also had a 2 iron, which we know won't come to retail. At least not in a full retail capacity. Maybe we'll get it through the vault and they'll make like 500 or 1,000 of them to sell limited edition. But
Hmm.
the 3 iron, you know, he liked the way it looked, but then there's also got to be something with, you know, how it performed. So, I mean, 18 and a half degrees, 59-degree lie angle, played in at 39 and 3/8 inches at a D2.5 swing weight. So it's with a dynamic gold mid 115, you know, a little higher launching. Probably doesn't spin an absolute ton, but pretty interesting that he's playing that again over some other stuff that's in the line. But it's nice that they gave us a little sneak peek into what these 790s are going to look like for next year.
What do you think is the highest selling iron of the last 5 years? I don't have the answer. It just popped in my head to ask you that. But what do you think? Last 5 years
Like overall, like 5 years. I mean,
overall? Yeah, it's a tough
uh,
question.
yeah.
Absolutely loaded.
I think it's going to be something like 5 years goes back to like 18. Man, I mean, I'm trying to think of what I see a lot of. I mean, honestly, what's probably the like one of the big. Well, it probably goes back beyond 5 years, but I know when TaylorMade kind of re-released the burner iron or the burner 2.0, whatever it was, I
Hmm.
see those in a million bags around here when you just go to like just get paired up with some people at a local muni.
Yeah,
Those are everywhere. And then, man, I'm trying to think what I mean. I would love to say like Ping, but I just don't think it is. It's got to be a TaylorMade or Callaway iron, and then it's probably something like like a. It's not, but it's not going to be Rogue because Rogue didn't. I mean, I don't see a ton of Rogues. I see a lot of like XR OSs out there a lot. Like those are in a
I
ton of
see a lot
bags,
of
but
XRs.
those are
You're
older than
right.
five
You're right.
years. Um, but it's going to be something like that. It's going to be something like that that did really well the main year or two, and then like a lot of these companies, they kind of re-release it in the big box form
Hmm.
and sell it for a reduced price, and they're everywhere. So the burners were, I mean, those burner 2.0s in like black or whatever were just they're all over the place.
Here's why I asked that question. As we were talking about the 790s, the new 790s,
Yep.
I was like, why do they keep going back to P790, like specifically called P790? It's not differentiated in any way. When like we write about it, we'll say 2023
Yep.
P790 or 2024. And then I was thinking, I was like, they probably don't change it because it works. It's probably
Yeah.
the highest selling iron in the last 5 years. If it's not the P790, then what is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking that it has to be the highest selling by far. I guess when titles came out with like the T100, I think those were pretty hot.
Yeah. Those move pretty well.
Or, I mean, I guess the Callaway Apex always does well, but that just depends on like when the release was. I guess when you look at it compared to like a P790, but just food for thought, really.
Yeah. No,
Just something I wanted to get your take on.
the Apex, those versions are out there a lot, but I think it's more those are a higher price point, and I think overall, if you look at golf in general, that 12, 13, $1,500 set once you get custom fit doesn't sell as many as that $800 set or
Hmm.
$700 set that you can go get, and I think those numbers will add up faster. But no, the P790, it makes a lot of sense. There's not a Pro V1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like they don't that just it's the Pro V1. And yes, you and I, media and
That's
people,
true.
they know
That's
it's the
true.
2021 ball or the 2022 ball or whatever it is. but it's not marketed that way. It's just the Pro V1 because that's what
Hmm.
it is. And I think with the 790, same thing. The guy who goes in there to go get fit or, for a set of P790s, whether it's this one or the previous one or whatever, they just know, hey, the 790 is a great iron. It's probably what fits my game, and that's a comfortable thing to just be handed. Hey, here's the TaylorMade P790, and it's like cool. Instead of saying, here's the P791, the P792. Well, my buddy plays the 90. Well, here's the 92 because it's the newer one.
Hmm.
It's a 790, and that's just what it is. And that continuity, I think, does play a role, in golf and getting people comfortable with being handed a club and hitting it.
I think if you're in the market for used irons and you're looking at P790, just make sure that you verify with the seller what year you're actually getting. Because it can get a little confusing with all these
Oh yeah,
generations. Like, even I get confused. As soon as I look at a P790, I don't know right off the bat if I can identify the year if I'm not looking at like it laid out in front of me. You know what I mean? I could probably
yeah.
identify the absolute oldest versus the one that's unseen, but it gets a little sticky in like second and third generations. But um, so we're on fourth generation, right?
I think so. Yeah,
790.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and kind of just to that point we were just talking about. I mean, Titleist had the AP2 for like a
Ever,
decade, but
but
they always had 712, 714,
714.
76, like some way to
Yeah,
differentiate and written on the club. Um, I just thought it was interesting how TaylorMade continues to go down the P790, P770, and not switching it up from there.
yeah.
Um,
Callaway
I
did the
know
same
they
thing.
they changed the blade nomenclature, didn't they?
Well, I felt like the blade thing changed when they went to the P series because then it went from just like MC, MB, whatever. Then it went to P7MB,
Okay,
P7MC,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and
That's what
it
it was.
stayed since. But Callaway did the same thing with the Apex. There's the Apex 21, Apex 19, and they're stamped on
True,
the hosel the 19,
true.
21, you know.
Hmm.
And then I'm assuming when we see the next one, it'll be the Apex 23, and we'll see if they actually put the 23 on there. But they've also done like Titleist just had a little piece on there, but they don't market it. They don't put that full name in there usually.
All right. I think we exhausted the TaylorMade iron topic there. We can move along to something arguably even more interesting, I think, for me at least.
Okay.
Phil Mickelson.
Oh yeah.
Was not expecting this one. All right. So, Phil Mickelson, obviously, away guy.
Yep.
Essentially, his entire career. I don't know what he played directly out of college. Do you remember?
He
Was
went
it
to
Ping
tight.
stuff?
I think I know he played Ping and then he played Titleist for a little bit, and then he went to Yonex, and then I think after Yonex
Yonex.
he went to.
Yep.
But he was
I think you're
Titleist before
absolutely right.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so at the Open Championship, he came out with a Ping G430 LST driver.
Yep.
Not completely 100% out of the blue because he switched to a Ping G430 Max fairway wood at Live London, apparently. Like
Yep.
right before Live London, he threw in a Ping G430 fairway. And then before the Open Championship, I guess, Saturday or Sunday or something before then, like pretty directly before, he asked the Ping guys to build him up some driver options. He tested on, I'm sure, all the options that they built for him, decided on the G430 LST 9 degree with the Fuji Ventus Blue in there. And he switched to it on
Yeah.
Thursday. No Callaway Paradigm in there. Switched to the G430. I don't think he played very well. We're recording this podcast on a Friday, so we have the answer. Let me just find Phil real quick on this leaderboard.
Yeah.
And yeah, he missed the cut at 9 over.
Oof.
So he shot 3 over
Oof.
today, 6 over on Thursday. Doesn't seem like the experiment did great, but he obviously took it out there for a reason. What do you think that reason was,
Uh,
Orion?
I think it makes a lot. I mean, I'm actually a little bit shocked that it's taken this long to see a lot of non-Callaway stuff come in the bag because
Mm,
Phil's, I think, kind of a closet tinkerer. Or not a closet, he's a tinkerer. And he used to have a ton of Callaway stuff, and he'd go through some new things. He had prototype hybrids and things like that. We all remember the all blacked out RBZ, the
Hmm.
fairway that he played, and
He
stuff like
still
that.
uses a Ping Answer hybrid.
Yeah,
Now that I think about
exactly.
it, I don't know if
Yep.
it's in the bag this week, but it's definitely been in there in 2023. But
And
go
he's
on.
always and ever since he left Callaway, he's always been playing that Ping I2 XC
True.
lob wedge.
Very true.
So I honestly thought this was going to start like once him and Callaway kind of did their little like, hey, we're going to kind of split up for right
Hmm.
now. I was kind of wondering when this was going to happen because it just seemed like they've been kind of split up too long. But the LST makes sense for Phil because Phil's a little wild off the tee, and if he can find something that's still low spinning, it's still really stable, it makes sense for him. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
he's still a guy who moves it. He still brings some decent ball speed, even though he's a little older. But he's a little wild. So if he can find a driver that keeps the spin down and keeps the ball in play, I mean that's kind of what he's looking for. Not to say that Callaway can't make that, but Ping is just kind of known as being ultra stable. So it makes a lot of sense.
I think you're kind of right. Now that I hear you explaining it, I guess in my mind, this might not be true, but just in my testing, the LST, any ping driver, pretty much, even if it's fit to me, like I get the shaft tip the same way, everything's dialed in. I do feel like ping spins a little bit more for me compared to like if I put LST versus triple diamond.
Yeah,
I feel like the triple diamond is knocking spin off a little bit better. And like you said, Ping is known more for its stability and forgiveness, and I think LST is their best low spin killing option within the forgiving
yeah,
field. Okay,
yep,
Callaway probably a little less forgiving, but we're going to spin the ball a little bit lower. And like you said, Phil's wild off the tee, so it
yeah,
makes sense for him to have a more stable driver. I just thought the Open Championship was a bit interesting.
yeah.
It's very
I agree.
windy. Like everyone out there is working on killing spin. They're changing out their 5 woods and 7 woods to throw in driving irons. And then, you know, just my personal take on the two driver companies. One has slightly lower spin than the other. So if I was going to see this change, I thought I would have saw it a little bit earlier, not at the one event where the wind is the highest.
Yeah,
So that's just where I'm coming from. So it almost makes it feel like a statement that Phil's making. While he knows he's going to be hot and they're going to talk about every move he makes out there, throwing in the ping driver is like a slight to Callaway, or maybe he's moving into Ping, maybe he's furthering a relationship with Ping. There's something there that this is a sign of things to come. Maybe I'm looking like way too far into it. Maybe he just really enjoyed the 3 wood at London. He's free to play whatever he wants now, so he wanted to try the driver and he liked it. Um,
yeah.
I don't know. It just made my ears perk up a little bit when I saw that, and I thought maybe there was more news to come out this week. We haven't seen anything else, and he missed the cut, so
It's,
I guess irrelevant as we head into the weekend, but definitely something I wanted to bring up and get your take on.
yeah. The one thing that's more interesting to me about it is the fact that he went Ventus blue, and I want to say
Instead of black,
I think it's
or
a
instead of
TR
red.
instead of red or black. And even if it's a TR blue, only because he's always played black or red, and both of those are like really stiff handle section shafts. And now
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden he's moved to blue, which is the softest of the three profiles in the handle. Just a little different. I would have expected him to go, one of the two other shafts instead of just a Ventus blue. So it actually does look to be, I think, an actual Ventus blue, not a TR blue, which again is very interesting because it's a much different shaft profile than he's typically played.
I went through basically every single Getty image at the Open Championship trying to figure out whether it was a TR or a regular one. So
Yep.
I just whatever you just did that too.
Yeah, I did
Trying
like
to
a
trying to
quick.
figure out what Ventus shaft it was.
Yeah, and one of the photos it looks like there's a little gold like TR box, it looks like that in the section. But then looking at some of these others, I don't see where the handles the under the grip gets really dark,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
what the TR series has. So Hard to say exactly, but yeah, it's now the fairway looks to be a straight Ventus blue. The other thing it could be though, and I don't know. Again, I don't know. They made a limited edition run of Counterbalance blue for the tour. They never came out to us at retail, but they made a Counterbalance version of Ventus blue for the tour guys because there was some demand there. Some people wanted them, and ping heads typically are pretty heavy. Now on tour, they kind of get whatever they need, but ping heads typically are a little bit heavier. I wonder if maybe that's like a Counterbalance blue that he had just to kind of offset and make the build correct swing weight and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing that, but I know that shaft did exist on tour, but not with us.
I just wrote a note on my little notepad that I use during this podcast. I wrote CB Ventus question mark. I'm following up on that because it might sound like a conspiracy theory to some people, but I think you might be spot on.
I mean,
He's
I
a
know that.
counterbalance guy too, isn't he?
I mean, Ventus Red isn't counterbalanced. Black is slightly counterbalanced.
He had like
Uh,
a KBS Tour Proto
yeah,
shaft that he was using. Was it
the
wasn't that
TD.
counterbalance or no? Is
Uh,
that
I
not?
I don't think it's very counterbalanced if it is. And
Okay.
then what? When he was
All right.
with, yeah, I'm just trying to think of the shafts he's used. I mean, the Fubuki stuff he used back in the day was a little bit
Mm.
counterbalanced.
He used that stuff for years.
Yeah, but then he never really got into like Tensei Orange, which is like a big counterbalance shaft. He never
Right.
really went down that road too much. But also, it's a different head. I mean, now you're talking, like I said, potentially maybe slightly heavier head. So I don't know.
Hmm. All right. Fair enough. I wrote it down in my notebook, so I'm gonna get the answer. Um, we have other King speculation.
Yep.
I believe Terrell Hatton and Victor Hovland put in like one of the irons. So there's no
Oh
Ping
yeah.
irons floating around out on
Yep.
tour, and I believe they're being played at the Open Championship. Unfortunately, we haven't seen an up close look at them. I haven't seen them in hand. I haven't heard anything from Ping. Like there's no information about these irons, only that there's new irons floating around. So
Yeah.
what do you think these things are? And what are you
Well,
hoping that they are?
so the one of the guys that we're kind of friends with out on Instagram is SMS on tour, his
Hmm.
Instagram account, and he actually got like an in hand photo of him, and it's
Oh,
basically
okay.
called the Blueprint S, is what it's called, and it really reminds me of remember the Answer Forged they did years ago. Ping did the Answer Forged.
I never
Re-
played them, but
Neither did I. Actually, it's a lie. Well, I never played them. I did hit.
I'm sure you had them in the bag at one point.
No, I never did because they were always way too expensive. Even on the secondary market,
Okay.
like used ones were way too expensive at the time. But I remember hitting the original one, and it was not the softest forging you would ever hit. It would not
Mm,
rival a Mira in terms of softness. That is for
okay.
sure. It definitely had a little click, a little firmness to it. It was
A little
not,
high pitched on the sound.
yeah, it wasn't amazing.
That's what we
But
call clicky when you're trying to,
yeah, be
soften the
PC
blow.
about it.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of an Answer Forge. It looks like it's got a little longer blade length. It looks to be kind of that one piece forged, shallow cavity in it. It kind of reminds me, honestly, a little bit of like a ZX7 in a way. It's like a
Hmm.
ZX7 and an Answer. Old Answer iron had a baby. But very interesting because everybody's always very interested around, a forged ping iron is something everybody's kind of into. But yeah, Blueprint S looks a little bigger than the OG Blueprint and hopefully has some good feel and sound to it. But could definitely see where this is going to be, kind of a tour type iron, better
Hmm.
player's iron. Not a ton of offset. Top line from the photos he has seem to be not razor thin. It's got a little bit of meat there, but still a compact player's type iron.
You can keep talking if you want. I want to bring up SMS on tour and just look at the irons for myself.
Yeah, no, they're solid. It doesn't look like there's any badging in the back cavity, and it looks like they've kind of done like the typical ping kind of bead blast finish with a little bit of chrome on the very back kind of muscle or meat of the iron there. So overall, I think a good looking. I still don't.
Oh, here we are. I found them.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
love the notch that goes into the heel of the club, like right below the hosel. It's just not my thing. I don't love that. I know you don't see it at address, but I just feel like it takes away from some of the clean lines that iron could really have.
Okay, so I'm looking at it now. I think your take is pretty spot on. Um, my thing just in general about Ping and releasing clubs, they don't miss a lot
No,
and they don't release a lot either. It's not like, every single year you're getting a new Ping iron or even a
no.
Ping driver. They do every other year release with their drivers, right?
Yep, they're every
So
2 year. Every
whenever you see a new Ping club in general, it's like, you can't wait to get your hands on it and try it. These look good. Um, they're called Blueprint, right?
Blueprint S.
Blueprint S. Okay. So what do we think the S stands for then? Because they're cavity back. When
Um,
you hear Blueprint, since it's been the only available product, Blueprint to me is like, okay, we're looking at super thin blades. Like I probably don't need to seriously consider putting these in my bag because they're a blade and I'm not good enough to play blades. So, when I see the CB, I'm definitely more like, what's this thing? It's very intriguing.
oh yeah. You want to know why I think it is? And honestly, I'm going to say this, and I hope I'm dead spot on. And I just thought of it as I was sitting here.
Okay.
What if it stands for stretch? Because remember, they used to always,
Blueprint stretch.
because remember the fairway woods? They'd make the slightly
Yeah.
bigger, stronger, and they'd call it the stretch. I
Oh my
wonder if
God.
it's a
I think you're right.
slightly longer blade, slightly bigger, probably built,
And stretch the distance,
stretch
stretch
it.
the forgiveness,
Yeah.
stretch the sweet spot.
I wonder if it's a
Did we just
Blueprint
come up with
S.
their marketing materials?
Might have, might be.
Ping, I'm so sorry. I think you
Yeah.
blew the lid off it though, Nuts.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of jumped in my head because I was like, S, like, what is it kind of? And then I was like, God, remember the old stretch fairways they used to do? Stretch versions of, fairways, stronger lofted, longer, bigger heads, whatever. I wonder if it's the Blueprint S. That's, the stretched out model, stretched heel to toe a little bit, a little taller, whatever. And again, this is just, I have no idea. It's going off one photo, from
That's why you're the
Instagram.
gear expert out here.
But
Well, it
could
certainly
be.
doesn't stand for small.
No, because it looks bigger.
It ain't smaller
Definitely
than
looks bigger.
a regular blueprint. But I'm looking at it from a dress. I mean, it looks real nice. There's not a lot of
Oh, yeah.
offset there. Um, I agree with you about the notch. Like, I never want to see a notch in my nozzle, but you also don't see it from a dress, so it doesn't
Yeah.
affect me very
No,
much
it,
at all. It just doesn't have that classic, like, rounded off look.
yeah. And I get it.
But
They're
other than
probably
that, they look really sharp from a dress.
agree.
They
I think
kind
they
of
look
look
really solid.
like they kind of look like the irons I'm playing right now, the 0311P
Yeah.
PXG Gen 6s.
Yeah, maybe just a little less
Very
offset.
similar look.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I mean, I
All right,
think,
so that's very intriguing, and that makes sense that you're seeing them out on tour because they look very sharp from a dress, not a lot of offset, but you're still obviously getting a little more forgiveness than those blueprint blades, which they are tough to look down at. Like you even
they're
look down at the
tiny.
7 iron, it's like if I'm hitting a layup shot with a 7 iron, I want to know for a fact I'm gonna hit this thing off the center of the face, and that's not how I feel with small blades.
No.
I guess I know I'm getting old and bad at golf. When I say things like that, it hurts, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Ping. Um, the last topic that I wrote down was Brian Harman's currently leading the Open Championship by 5.
Yeah.
What, what do we got here? Like, are we going to get any excitement going into this weekend? Pretty much everyone who's led a major championship by at least 5 has gone on to win. Is Brian Harman gonna be the next, or do we have a lot of drama still to unfold?
I think there's a lot of drama still, and I think I feel like while watching a little bit, I've heard that the weather this weekend could get a little funky, and they could bring in a little bit of weather to challenge some guys. I mean,
Good,
Harman's a great
good.
player. Don't get me wrong. Harman's a guy that low key puts in a bunch of top 20s, top 10s, things like that. And if you're not really looking for his name, you probably miss it. But he's low key. He may not win a ton, and he may not be a guy they talk about at majors and stuff like that. But the guy low key is a great player. He really is. Um, but 5-stroke leads a lot. Don't get me wrong, but it is the Open Championship, and if a little bit of rain and wind and all that comes in, it is anybody's game at that point because you just never know how guys are going to react to playing in the rain or the cold or the wind or whatever. he could keep rolling on and see it out, or somebody else could jump and he could fall back a little bit. So I think we're still a ways off, and it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend.
I'm obviously not hoping against anyone. All I do is hope for fun events that are entertaining with a little bit of drama. So obviously, no one wants to see like a five-stroke lead get extended out to seven, and then it's an absolute yawn fest on Sunday.
Yeah, that's
So
true. I hope not.
obviously hoping someone behind him plays really well, and he only kind of plays like well.
Yep, I'm with you.
But
I'm with you on that.
now that being said, Brian Harmon, you said like low key is a player. I'm just going through his results this season. He's got a second, a T2 at the RSM, a T8 at the QBE, T17 at the match play. Match play didn't go
Still,
too well.
I mean,
T7 at RBC Heritage, and then his last four events, he went T43 at the US Open,
yeah, it's not.
T2, T2 at the Travelers Championship, T9 at the Rocket Mortgage, and T12 at the Genesis. So my boy has been playing very well the last month.
And and I think that
He's got to be
43,
feeling confident.
and I think that 43 at the U.S. Open is better than that thing. I mean, he's not a long hitter. He's not a guy who's going to overpower a
He's five
course.
five.
Yeah, but the dude,
He does not hit the ball very far.
no, that's not his type. Like Kevin Kisner made it the best when people are like, "Oh, you can win any event." He's like, "No, I can't." And I
He's
think
like, no,
Brian
I can't.
Harmon,
What are you talking about?
yeah, and I think Brian Harmon at a U.S. Open, like that is not his best. That's not that's not the tournament that he's set up best for. Not that he could never win it, but
Right.
he's just not set up for that. So I think for him to even be T43 is probably a pretty good outing for him at that venue. So yeah, you think about other than that, you take it out, he's top 20 in everything else. But he's better than
So
top 20.
even like,
18th is the
oh,
worst.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, guys.
No, but 18th is worse from there. That's pretty freaking stellar.
Right. He's an actual gamer.
Yeah.
It's what he's been doing for like 20 years, just printing money out there. And he's been playing really well the last month. So he has to be feeling supremely confident going in. I just had another point I was going to make and I got sidetracked.
Yeah. He's a
Dang.
lefty. So, one of the lefties out there.
Left. Oh, here's what I was going to say. There's probably so many like casual sports fans who, they only watch the majors and they're saying Brian Harmon who
Oh, yeah.
when they look at this leaderboard.
Yeah.
But he'd been here.
Oh, yeah.
He'd been here. So would I be completely shocked if Brian Harmon just did what he needed to do coming home, do like a 68 and a 70 and win this thing by two? He's a veteran. So
Yeah.
I do believe that I think Brian Harmon's going to hold on to win.
Ooh,
That's where
that's
we're
bold.
going.
That's bold.
That's where we're going with it.
Man, I think he definitely could.
At 14 under. I just want to be specific with it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the leaderboard, and it's unfortunately one of those things. If somebody's a very casual golf fan, like you said,
They're out.
they're looking at this leaderboard and they're just like Tommy Fleetwood, Jason Day at T4, and Jordan Spieth at T7, and they're just scrolling saying, "That's all I know," and that's a bummer.
They're saying if any of those guys make some birdies on Saturday, then I'll watch. Until then, I'm not watching.
Exactly. Like if those guys aren't right there and on Sunday, then yeah, I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah.
But I don't think Harmon holds on. I think we get Fleetwood his first win. I think the boy grinds it out. I think he gets to 12. I think a little weather, a little wind this weekend. He gets it to 12, and he pulls it out. Harmon comes in second.
I think that place goes absolutely crazy for Fleetwood.
If Fleetwood wins it, I mean, it's kind
They're
of
doing
like
the Tommy. They're doing that chant.
It's kind of like when Lowry won. When
Yeah.
Shane Lowry won
Yeah.
over in Ireland, and it was absolute. People
Man.
went nuts.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, same thing if Fleetwood wins that, and I think there's more people, even outside of just kind of in his home country, all that. Like everybody just loves Tommy Fleetwood.
Yep.
Like what have you ever heard somebody be like, "Yeah, I don't really like Tommy Fleetwood."
He's literally the nicest guy ever, too. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a couple times. He's also a gearhead.
Yeah,
he knows his stuff. He's got a mini driver in the bag, so
Yep.
pulling at my heartstrings there. But
Uh,
I'm still going with Brian Harmon. I think it would really cool to see that type of veteran guy who's been such a grinder, never really stashes away a lot of wins, and then go over to the Open Championship not
and win it.
expecting anything from him. I can't even imagine what his odds were, and then he goes out and
No.
wins it. I think that would be pretty cool. You know,
Yeah.
that would be a win like for the people type thing.
Yeah. I agree.
But
And I agree about Fleetwood. The guy's a gearhead. I got to interview him once as well, and he saw
yeah,
the shafts behind me, and he was like, "Oh, he's like, I just
okay.
tried whatever," and I was like, "Oh, have you tried this one?" He's like, "No, not yet." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, he's no
He's-
joke. He loves testing and loves talking about gear.
Yeah.
So that would be for the gearheads. Harmon would be for the people. That's all I have from the Open Championship. Now, before we get out of here, we just got to touch on it briefly. We had our own version of the match go down that
Yeah.
we released I believe it was last Friday. So me and you, we went out to Rackham in Michigan while I was
That's
in
right.
town for the Rocket Mortgage in Detroit. We did a little something different. Instead of going with the USGA recommended handicap system, we decided to handicap myself in a different way,
True.
only allowing me to use three clubs, and you got to choose the three clubs for me to use.
Yeah.
So, what was your mindset? What did you choose? And just some brief thoughts about how we set up the match.
It was a blast. Like we had fun. I mean, you and I don't get to play as much golf as we used to anymore now that you're,
It's
following the
unfortunate.
tour around. So anytime
Yep.
we get to play is fun. But yeah, it was kind of cool. We got out early in the morning, and played in some some little foggy weather. But yeah, I mean, when it came to equipment, it was kind of looking around and seeing like what was interesting that just people don't see, whatever. So we had a Persimmon, a Ben Hogan. Well, I guess we keep using the word Persimmon, and we get corrected like crazy in the comments.
Laminated.
A laminated Ben Hogan wood
Jeez.
driver, and yeah, we
People
got
give us a lot of
blasted.
flack for that.
That huge. The guys who are into Persimmon are really into it, and they know the difference.
Hey,
So
respect.
laminated wood driver with a steel shaft and an old worn grip. A 1972 Hogan Apex blade iron with an upgraded graphite shaft. That's now
It
probably
was
20
so
years.
light.
That was now
It was
20
so
years
light.
old. And
Yeah.
then a wedge that Cleveland made, gosh, probably like in 2017, was a CBX, what they call sip groove. So they actually milled out a bunch of material out of the heel so they could make it a bottle opener. And I don't think it was ever made to be hit because it's super light. But I put a shaft in it and took it out. And
Which I
those are your,
appreciate. Thank you for
yeah.
shafting it up at least so I didn't have to chip like with my hand.
It had actually been shafted up. I think I shafted up to hit it once or something like that, and I hit it, and it's just been sitting in a rack. So we went out and played those, and yeah, you putted with the 52 degree, and we played a nice little match, and it was pretty interesting because you hit the ball surprisingly well with those clubs, having never really hit them before. It was pretty impressive.
All I want to say is that it was an experience that I'll never forget. Playing with old equipment is no joke.
Yep.
I don't think they knew the term MOI back then.
No.
There's just not a lot of
No.
forgiveness going on. Yes, it was extremely early, 6 a.m. That's not
Yeah.
really my time
No.
necessarily. And it was wet, it was windy. Um, it was everything you want from a Knudsen
Oh
versus
yeah.
Tursky match, really. So if you're interested in seeing us play against each other, with a little bit of a focus on equipment, obviously, we're doing a
Yep.
three club match. We get into some of the stuff you were playing. But definitely go over and check that out on YouTube. The entire
That's right.
round is there. Every single shot that you hit, every single shot that I hit. Um, we didn't take any mulligans. There was no like
No.
cooking the system or anything. That was our match. Not 18 holes. I guess we played 9 holes,
We
but
played 9. Yep.
um, yeah. So that's Golf WRX on YouTube.
Yeah. And I
So
think
if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, you're probably watching it on the Golf WRX Radio YouTube
yeah.
channel. Just go over, switch that over to the official Golf WRX, our regular YouTube page, and that's two guys playing golf right there. If you want to watch.
And I know we want to do it again. We had a blast doing it, and I
Oh
know we
yeah,
want to do it again. And trust me, I've already
we're
been taking
running it
some
back.
notes on some clubs that you're going to get to play with next time, and they won't be as
Ooh.
nice as what you had.
Ooh.
Let's just put it that way. They're going to be
Even
worse.
worse off than
They're even worse.
the
Oh yeah,
laminated driver from the '60s, which is
for
also like
sure.
falling apart.
Yep. Oh, they're going to be worse. They're going to be worse than that. So we'll put some stuff together and we'll see how it goes.
I'll be like Tin Cup going out and playing with like the
Yeah,
baseball bat and the shovel.
shovel.
Okay,
You'll
I
be
love it.
begging for a baseball bat by the time these things are out there. You'll be begging for a baseball bat. So,
All right, fair enough. I
yep.
love it. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, enjoy our little 3 club match, and then obviously enjoy the Open Championship.
Yeah,
It's the weekend at the Open Championship, last major of the year. Just got to enjoy it while it lasts.
that's right.
And this podcast ain't lasting no longer. We are signing off. This was Two Guys Talking Golf. Happy Open Championship week. Knudsen, have a great weekend.
You too, my man.
Peace.